I just wanted to talk a little bit about the messy middle that I feel like we don't often talk a lot about the our transformation and our growth. And right now that's where I am. It's a moment where I'm feeling a bit lost. I know I'm going through a death period, and it's funny because usually I always am like, "Yay, I can't wait for a death period," because I know afterwards something happens and you grow and you transform. But I forget how whenever I'm in this moment, this death, it's an actual death and it's not actually that fun. And it feels more raw and ugly, messy, embarrassing. I mean, these days I feel like I'm transforming and I see the transformation, but I also don't necessarily know where it's going. Sometimes it feels unhinged. I almost scare myself. Like these days, like I'm letting my anger out and I'm starting to let that part of myself get expressed. And I remember thinking about how good that would be, just to be able to express my anger. But as I'm learning it, I'm realizing that it's not that, doesn't feel that great because I'm not doing it perfectly. I'm doing it actually imperfectly. I'm learning. And so it's really not always my highest self. And maybe even like sometimes afterwards, I'm like, gosh, like recently I got angry at somebody. And then afterwards, I was like, oh, maybe I really overreacted. And I kind of went back to my old ways of like, oh, that was actually, it's unsafe to be angry because you were wrong. And now I'm trying to be like, no, okay, like maybe you didn't have to express that. And we're in that way. But feel safe expressing your anger. It's good to be expressing this and learning about it. But I kind of feel like sometimes when we're thinking about our transformations and how we're growing, um, we always talk about the caterpillar becoming the beautiful butterfly, and we're so excited to become the butterfly. And I do think we do become the butterfly, but I do think we forget that that caterpillar actually, to become the butterfly, dissolves into some liquid goo. And when you're in the goo, it's really not very fun. And it's also very confusing and it's very lonely because, like any transformation, you have to do it by yourself and on your own. People can guide you, people can tell you, people can say, I've been through that. But when you're there and when you're lost and when you don't have your own map, because you have to make your own map and everybody comes with their own instruction booklet, and we don't actually have the instruction booklet, we have to kind of make it as we go for ourselves. It's really scary, and you don't know how it's going to work out because it worked out for somebody else, but you don't know how it's going to work out for you, and you don't know how long you're going to be in the goo and the mess. Anyway, that's where I am. And I just wanted to talk about this because I know I'm not the only one. I hear a lot of people being in this messy middle right now, and it feels really lonely. And it also feels a little bit like we don't really know how to get out or where we're going. I think that's also the confusing part is whenever there is a real death, it's almost like something is ended, but we don't always really know where the next part is. I don't always know where it's going. And I know that I'm experimenting things these days. I'm experimenting putting up boundaries, let's say, expressing my anger, as I already mentioned, or I'm talking about things like, I'm trying to be honest more and more. But the other day I realized that honesty to a certain extent, maybe it doesn't need to be honest all the time. I was talking to a friend and she was showing me something she just bought. And I was like, oh, I don't really like that. And I realized it hurt her feelings. And I didn't really need to tell her that. Like, I am all for honesty and that's what I'm working for. But that's what I'm saying about like learning, and that it's not this like when we learn how to be honest or we learn to be angry, we don't do it perfectly to get where it is nice and where we are that butterfly. In the meantime, we are doing all this stuff where we do things wrong. And now I realize for sure I still want to be honest. And that is actually something I'm learning, to express my voice and my opinion and to be who I am and to be authentic. But I realized, for example, in this case, I didn't need to share that information. It wasn't something that is going to be useful or helpful either to her or even to me. It it was honest. It was my real opinion, but it wasn't necessary. And I feel like in our growth period, that's where we learn things. We learn kind of like how to walk and how to walk with different parts of ourselves. But as when we're kids and we're learning to walk, it feels normal to fall down. But when we're adults, it feels, I don't know about you, but it feels really embarrassing when I make mistakes. And when I, let's say, express my anger, when afterwards I realize I shouldn't have, or I was trying to be authentic and then I realized maybe I didn't need to. And it's like kind of finding your own compass in all of this and how to be your authentic and truest self, and also be respectful of others, and also live in a world where we all have different opinions and different ways of doing things. So yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. I also just wanted to bring up that story I heard from Pema Chodron, a Buddhist monk, and she was just talking about how the more we do work on ourselves, we think that the more we do work on ourselves, like we're on a boat and we're gonna have this, the water underneath us is all murky, and once we do the work, the water is gonna clear up, and it does. But what we see in the water is not just the bottom of the lake. We end up seeing all the skeletons that we've buried and that actually now need addressing. So it's like the in the middle part, this messy middle, as we're going to then go to the skeletons and dig them up and start looking at them and addressing them and understanding them, we go through the moment where we actually see all the things that we actually still need to work on. And it's like we've done some work and then it gets clear, but then we see the mess. Anyway, so if you're going through something like this, I wanted to talk about this period, and I pulled some cards for us, for anybody going through this kind of messy middle, this moment where the transformation is not pretty. It's not the pretty butterfly. It's the messy, gross gooey part of the caterpillar becoming the butterfly. And when you're there, I don't know how long I'm going to be here, and that's what's scary. So I pulled some cards for us, and I got two cards. I got the Three of Cups, which to me, when I first saw the card, I was like, what is going on? And I got the Five of Cups. Two cup card, and cups and tarot have to do with our feelings and our emotions and our kind of like our relationships, and so I thought this was pretty telling. But the Three of Cups, when it showed up, I was really laughed at this card, because this card talks about celebration and community and kind of like being social. And like right now I'm realizing, like in this part of where I am, I have no desire to be social. I do not feel like celebrating. I feel kind of like putting my head under the cover and kind of like staying there until it all disappears. Because as I said, like sometimes in my transformation, it feels kind of more embarrassing, or like I just wish I could like appear as the butterfly and not have to show myself as I transform. But I guess actually the transformation includes us going out and being with other people and showing our not so great sides. But then I actually sat with this card a little bit, and I realized that there is something about being with other people. And I realize right now, like I'm feeling quite kind of lonely in my transformation, because everything that we're all doing is very individual. All our own stories, or all the skeletons that we have to deal with, are all individual. I do believe that. But I am seeing that more and more people are dealing with their skeletons. And so we can kind of reach out to others and not have to do it alone. Because even if somebody else is working on some other skeleton, we can find community and maybe even some joy there as we're going along. Then this card came up. We got the Five of Cups. And this card usually talks about sorrow and looking over like spilt milk and kind of being disappointed and really kind of feeling sorry for everything that's not going well. Because in the traditional deck, you actually have a man looking at three cups in front of him, and they're all spilt. But there's two cups behind him that are actually not spilt. But he's so concentrated on the cups that have spilt, he can't see what is actually going well behind him. And I find that that's actually maybe interesting here, is that I find that sometimes when I'm kind of going through this messy middle and kind of getting embarrassed and kind of feeling bad about my progress and my growth, I actually forget to see that I'm actually progressing. I'm only looking at what's going wrong, and I'm forgetting to look at all the progress I've made. And it's true, when I look at the kind of bigger scale, I do see that my path is going up. It does go up and down though. It's not like I'm going just up. It does have some ups and downs. but the general progression is up. And so, yes, maybe right now I'm in kind of a down, but if I look at the bigger picture, I'm going up. And so maybe I'm concentrating too much. Maybe you're concentrating too much on what's going wrong and not looking at what's right. I also think it's interesting, though, that in this particular deck, the cat's actually looking at the 5 cups with curiosity. And I do find that sometimes when I can take that step back and kind of get out of my own way and stop looking at myself maybe through my ego and kind of how I was saying, I'm kind of feeling embarrassed about my growth sometimes instead of, just wishing I could kind of appear perfect as a butterfly once I've transformed. I do think it's like about maybe looking at with curiosity at our progress and where we are. And instead of kind of judging it, this card just seems to be looking at the 5 cups with like just a lot of genuine openness, curiosity. And I find that maybe there's a little bit of relief that you can get if you can just remember that in the long run, all this stuff is working for you because life is happening for us and not to us, right? And so if we can just remember that, we can even remember and kind of relax into the GOO and be like, oh, well, this is going to start to be good for me at some point. And sometimes maybe we can trust that moment a little bit more if we can just look at it with curiosity. I also think both of these together, though, are reminding me, I think for me especially, and maybe probably for you too if you're watching this, maybe we're taking life so seriously. And that, like, for example, the moments that I can kind of laugh at myself, and sometimes I do, I realize more and more I'm able to kind of laugh at my mistakes, laugh at my growth. Like sometimes like I'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, I shouldn't have said that. Or yeah, maybe I was a little bit too much there when I was expressing my anger, but I start to like have a little bit of softness there and kind of like celebrate and kind of like have it be more of a party instead of seeing my life as being this like dark, sad thing. See it more as a party, see it more as like the lightness. And I know that's easier said than done. And whenever I get caught up in my spirals, I'm not able to do that. But sometimes when I take just a little step back, I do kind of laugh and I can laugh at myself and I can kind of like stop taking it so seriously. So, on that, I'm wishing you lots of love and lots of laughter if you're also going through this moment of GOO, this embarrassing, kind of messy middle, this ugly middle, this raw middle. What I'm getting from this reading is just to maybe relax a little bit, get off my case. Remember also that I'm not alone. I know it. I've been seeing so many things out there. We're not alone, even if what we're going through and what we're actually having to process is very personal. I think generally a lot of people are going through this. And so we can kind of support ourselves and support each other, even if not the exact same thing we're going through. And yeah, I think also to just maybe give us a little bit of grace during these moments and remember that, yeah, it will be imperfect and it will be what it is, but we will grow. And to remember that we are on that upward path, even if we're in maybe a downturn at some point. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next video.